A teenager in British Columbia has become Canada's first presumptive case of H5 bird flu. What we're told is a highly concerning strain of avian influenza spreading globally. The teen is now in BC's Children's Hospital, and we're told likely contracted the virus from a bird or animal, though health officials are still investigating. Here with more, Pam Killeen, a health and wellness coach, co-author of The Great Bird Flu Hoax with Dr. Joseph Mercola. Pam is also a health coach, as I say, focusing on educating people about improving their sleep quality, and she's the host of the Circadian Reboot with Pam Killeen podcast. Pam, welcome back. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, Richard?
I'm very well, thank you. So the title of the book, quite provocative, The Great Bird Flu Hoax. Given that you co-authored this book about, 18 years ago, what do you make of this presumptive case of H5 bird flu out in BC?
Well, the key word there being presumptive. There's just not enough details to go on. And on top of that, at this time of the year, Richard, people get the flu. It's just that common. And I'm sorry for everybody who gets a serious infection, AKA the flu. I'm really sorry that they feel terrible. It happens. It happens to all of us, including people like me. And I rarely get sick, but I can't say it will never happen because it happens. It's part of being human. And at this time of the year, when you start going indoors more often, you're more likely to get the flu. There are so many other variables at large here that we cannot just fearmonger with people and label these issues as being a strain of this or a strain of that. The reality is, at this time of the year, you're just more susceptible to getting an infection of some sort. And there are other variables, as I mentioned, and other things can include, have you been exposed to a lot of mold, for example? Are you exposed to extra chemicals at work or at home? Do you live near a factory farm, which is putting out all sorts of horrible contaminants? There's so many things that can happen at this time of the year and beyond that can contribute to the decline of our immune system. And of course, the other big theme is, how much sunshine did you get last summer? There's research that shows the more sunshine you get, the less likely you're going to get the flu in the fall and the winter. So we have to factor in all of these things when we're talking about infection of any kind, whether it's H5N1 or H1N1 or whatever you want to label it. It's just too black and white. The way the media portrays things is just way too black and white, and there's just not enough details for people to go on.
How much of the current, I don't know if panic is the right word, it's early days, but it may turn into a media-driven panic, but how much of this surrounding this virus do you think is being driven by the pharmaceutical industry's desire to sell vaccines and antiviral drugs to the public?
It's bigger than that. It's much bigger than that, Richard. It's not just about pushing unnecessary vaccines on people. A lot of my friends were vaccinated during the last lockdown, and I don't know any of them that didn't get COVID, so I was like, wait a second, you're not supposed to be getting COVID. You're wearing masks, you got vaccinated, and you're getting COVID. Can you not see the disconnect here? It's much bigger than just making sales in the pharmaceutical industry. This is about controlling the food supply as well, Richard. When I wrote the book in 2006 with Dr. Mercola, I spoke to many, many farmers, and their backyard chickens were getting targeted left, right, and center. They really just want a centralized control of the chicken industry in this case. And so if you have backyard chickens, they're going to go after you. They're going to try and target those innocent birds. And we know that these unhygienic factory farms are the real culprit, and they don't want the average viewer or listener to know this. And so on the media, you're going to hear them talking about wild birds, and they're going to be talking about backyard birds, but they're not the problem. They're healthy. They're out in the sunshine. They're out in the fresh air. They have lots of distance between themselves and the other birds that they're with. In these factory farms, they're basically stacked almost on top of each other. And it's just extremely irresponsible, unhygienic agricultural practices that we're dealing with here. And the more that they can target the innocent guy, shut them down, then the more they can sell their own vertically integrated chicken.
You seem to understand their playbook. Like we've seen this movie before. Given that, what do you think their next move is? What are we going to see next?
I want to see consumers fight back. I want to see consumers say, listen, we're smarter than you think we are. This is something that we can have some control over. If we're out in the fresh air, the sunshine, we're opening our windows at home, we're gathering as much sunshine as we can to build our vitamin D stores in the body, and then we can fight infection far more vigilantly as we would have in the past, potentially, when we've been wrongly demonizing the sun and the fresh air. So we got to turn that situation around. And we did this 100 years ago, of course. In 100 and more years ago, we had outdoor schools, we had outdoor hospitals. So when you'd see these children learning outdoors, or these people who allegedly had the Spanish flu, they were outside in tents and sleeping in cots during the day under the sun, and their outcomes were far better than anybody that was admitted into the hospital. So we know that nature provides the answers. Whether or not people follow these rules is a whole other story. And the other part of the solution, Richard, is the Ontario College of Physicians and Surgeons needs to stop harassing doctors for thinking for themselves. These doctors have gone to university, paid a lot of money to go through medical school. They come out of medical school with loans, and then they have to pay these loans back. So they're going to do what they're told to do. And this has got to stop. This insanity has to stop. These doctors need to step forward and say, no, this doesn't make any sense. This person is immunocompromised. They're not eating right. They're not outside getting fresh air and sunshine. I'm going to educate them. I'm going to teach them what they need to do to get their health back and prevent getting infection in the first place. And that's where the buck stops. That's where we really need to focus our energies on. There's debates over whether or not viruses even exist. That's a distraction. I'm not here to talk about that. We have to focus our energy on the solution. And that's what the solution is eating right, getting fresh air, getting sunshine, getting over your sun phobia, and going out and letting the sun do its medicinal thing. And so the doctors, I think, need to be braver, and we need to encourage them to be braver, to stand up to entities like the Ontario College of Physicians and Surgeons. And they've got to start encouraging people to embrace Mother Nature as a solution to this problem. I'm not saying no to antibiotics. Antibiotics can be very, very helpful. But in the last 4 years, I haven't seen how vaccines did anything to help anybody boost their immune system. Nothing at all. There are far greater ways to boost their immune system than to inject chemicals in the body. And they knew this. Again, the Nobel Prize in 1903 went to a guy by the name of Niels Finsen for doing sunlight therapy, because he knew it could cure tuberculosis, which is a serious, serious lung infection, of course. So they knew it 100 years ago. How come we don't know it today, Richard?
Great questions, Pam. Pam Killeen is the co-author of The Great Bird Flu Hoax with Dr. Joseph Mercola. She's also a health and wellness coach with a focus on educating people about improving their sleep quality. And she's the host of the Circadian Reboot with Pam Killeen podcast. Pam Killeen, Killeen, PamKilleen.com. Pam, thank you so much.
Thank you, Richard.